Hello, my name is Stephane Levesque from the University of Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. In this quick talk today, I will tell you why you need to read this article that we publish in Theory and Research in Social Education. My purpose will be to show you how young citizens of French Canada become historical in their modern French-speaking society, and why, as history educators, we need to pay far more attention to students' historical ideas if we truly want to have a meaningful, lasting impact. We spend so much time in Canadian schools assessing students on what they're supposed to know from the official curriculum that we have very little on what it is that they actually do know about the collective past. By the time students graduate from high schools, we know very little about the stories that they know and tell. Our research to young people's historical ideas differs significantly from what teachers formally evaluate, or what the media claim about our so-called digital natives. Because these assessments target factual knowledge or prescribed learning outcomes, they do not offer a broader picture of student narrative ideas, including the impact of the forces of historical culture that act to historicize their practical life. Using the theory of historical consciousness, we devised a matrix of historical learning that would allow us to see how forces within society influence and shape student narrative ideas of the collective past. So what did we do? Well, we approached over 600 students from various cities and regions of Ontario and Quebec. All these French Canadian students had completed compulsory national history courses in their respective province. In class, we asked them to tell us the history of French Canadians as they know it. They were given a laptop in 1 hour to write their story. We told them we were not fishing for correct history, nor their ability to recall what had been said in class. Our goal was broader. We sought to probe their historical consciousness to understand their big picture understandings of the collective past. What did we learn? Well, students could produce different narratives of the history of French Canada. Multiple and even colliding stories circulate in the wider historical culture of French Canada. In fact, when we began our project, we hypothesized that there would be significant differences between the histories of students because they come from different regions and provinces with different programs of study, but also because students are from different places, exposed not necessarily to the same experiences from one place to another. But interestingly, the majority of our participants in both provinces and across regions told stories along the line of adversity, a political narrative that is neither entirely positive nor totally negative, but instead nuanced. This is interesting because this narrative does not emerge directly from curriculum outcomes. Second, our article found that students' narrative tend to oversimplify the past. In most cases, students produce stories of very limited historical experiences. The focalization of students' stories is one such example. Many interpreted history in purely provincial terms, as if the experiences of others were either irrelevant or simply not relevant to their understanding of the country. Others expressed selected events that are limited in time and space to a specific regions, thus interpreting the collective past as a restricted imagined community of limited proportion. Another noticeable aspect is the absence of diversity in their narrative. Stories were typically structured around dominant groups, French versus English, with little appreciation for diversity within these groups or in the larger context of Canada and North America, as if past and contemporary realities could be represented as a pool table with just a few balls colliding into each other. As this student claimed, The English wanted our lands, and they won them by the war. In the same way, most students conveyed a highly Eurocentric representation of history that included the presence of First Peoples, as if they do not exist as individuals or nations within Canada. Even among the small group of people who did talk about Indigenous peoples, their narrative use represents a vision of history that is simply inappropriate. Indigenous peoples belong to the past, not the present. The results of this study raise the question of schooling in the formations of historical consciousness. What place should a narrative approach like this one occupy in history education? In our article, we discuss three implications. First, the research suggests that educators should adopt a constructivist view of history learning and teach in reference to student narrative ideas. As we have shown, culture and identity seriously affect how learners engage with the past, both intellectually and emotionally, and create narrative representations of it. Educators should thus use this personal connection to explore student prior knowledge, interests, and historical beliefs. Second, and in relation to the first implication, educators need to pay serious attention to student emotional and identity connection to the past, as these have serious impact on how students learn, ascribe significance to events, and value certain narratives. In many ways, students' collective identification acts as a cultural lens that filters their vision of history. This lens helps them understand what categories and groups they belong to, what distinguishes strangers from community members, and what separates the experience of their community in-group from that of the out-group. Finally, history educators should teach students about the constructed nature of narratives. In many ways, students learn history through narrative in school, family, and society. Yet these narratives are rarely problematized in any sophisticated way in Canadian school. Few students actually learn how narratives are constructed and disseminated in society. In many ways, students are like junior car drivers on the cultural highway without a driver's manual. As our earlier matrix shows, schools are a unique site of learning where political expectations, public memories, community memberships, and disciplinary knowledge come together for the purpose of educating young citizens. Students need more opportunities to construct and deconstruct narrative of the collective past that they use to orient their practical life. Thanks for watching, and please read our article for more details.